Welcome everybody to the BCTL, Build Community Through Love, the network. I'm here with Dr. Jessica Webb-Young. She is an actual medical doctor. I'm a PhD, so not as important as her. But I'm here with her today. She is a best friend of mine from undergrad, best friend for life, and I'm just happy to have her. So welcome, Jessica.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Jessica Webb-Young. I am a pediatrician currently based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm from North Carolina originally, this small town called Hollister, North Carolina. Dr. Daniels and I went to school together in college at North Carolina A&T State University, and I went to medical school afterwards at the British School of Medicine at East Carolina University. And so, as I mentioned, I'm a pediatrician, so I have MD behind my name, which means I'm a medical doctor. Just to go in a little bit more detail about that, I specifically take care of children, so 0 to 18 years of age. Try my best to keep them healthy, also take care of a lot of sick children. I work in a variety of different settings, both inpatient, which means in the hospital, as well as outpatient, so in clinics. And what I'm looking to do as far as my career, because right now I'm still in residency training. I'm finishing that up. So I'm in a 3-year residency training program for pediatrics. And then after that, I'll be receiving training in preventive medicine. And essentially what I'm hoping to do with that is do more community health initiatives and really understand and implement more population health initiatives to improve health, not just individually with the patients I see in clinic, but also amongst populations that are underserved and need the help the most. So it's a little about me.
Yeah, so take me back then, right? Because I think when I was a child, I already knew like I want to be an engineer, but I didn't know how that all worked itself out career-wise, right? So I knew I wanted to build things, right? And then I didn't know.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, if I go and become an architect, that means I draw, but I don't have anything to do with the actual building. And then it's like, okay, well, if I'm a civil engineer, I get to do certain things with whatever, but I'm not still at the building level. So I'm like, all right, so structures, bet I know what I'm doing now. When you were a child in Hollister, what made you, want to pursue this? Because I feel like this isn't something that you stumble into, because it's way too much. Mm-hmm. It's way too many years to pursue, way too much money to pursue. So what was the calling that you feel that led you into this career path?
Yeah. So when I was a little girl, I actually wanted to be a dentist. I don't know if you even knew that. That was the first thing I wanted to do. I think I've always had just this, I guess, characteristic internally that I wanted to take care of people. I just didn't know how I wanted to do that yet. But I did know, even from a very young age, I wanted to take care of children, or I wanted to help children. So I wanted to be some type of advocate for the youth in some capacity. Again, had not figured that out yet. Mm-hmm. I think when I started thinking about seriously pursuing a career in the healthcare field was when I was in high school. And that just came from, my interest of what classes I liked. I really liked the sciences. I like math. And then ultimately I did this allied health class, which basically teaches you anatomy and physiology of the human body. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of what prompted me into doing or getting more interested in medicine, because then I start to think about what can I do as a physician. And I knew even back then, I think, that title comes with a lot of responsibility, but also opens up the door for you to do things that you may not otherwise be able to do. And so for me, I've always been, again, someone that has enjoyed taking care of people. I've always loved doing community service projects, being an advocate and leader for a community, but I also like, that nerdy part of me, like the sciences in this part. And so I just felt like being a doctor would give me the opportunity to kind of encompass all those special interests that I had and really be able to make a difference in communities with the specific interests that I had. So that's kind of how I got interested. And then certainly once I got to college, I expressed that interest to different mentors and advisors who were able to helped connect me to people actually doing some of the things that I aspire to do. And I think that just further, you know, confirmed my passion for why I wanted to be a physician in the first place and how I could serve not only as that doctor, but really that community leader. And so that's kind of how I got into medicine.
That's awesome. And so your start was at an HBCU, but you wanted to go where?
Originally, I thought I wanted to go.
You thought. Yeah, say it. Say it loud.
I thought I knew what was best for me, but I was fooled. So I guess just to give some background behind this, I come from a pretty rural, poor area in Eastern North Carolina, and went to school all my life with mostly other Black students. So I thought that, okay, when I go to college, I guess I should try something different. I wasn't even really thinking about going to an HBCU initially. What I wanted to do was to go to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. That was kind of always my dream school. My aunt went there. I went with her to classes, you know, at some point when I was a little kid, and just saw myself in that kind of environment. But for me, it took actually going to an HBCU and touring an HBCU and really getting a snapshot or a small kind of part of, you know, what it really feels like to be in that kind of community. And I just knew that that's where I needed to be. I had no regrets about it. I didn't think, you know, that I wouldn't be able to excel or do the things that I wanted to do. In fact, I felt the opposite. When I visited A&T, I felt like this is a place that has a good program and what I'm interested in, and I feel like I will have the proper support system to help me navigate through these complex systems that, you know, I need to get through in order to get to the goal. And so originally I wanted to go to a PWI, a predominantly white institution, but changed my mind last minute because I saw the light.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to pause right quick, and we're going to go ahead and shout out the illustrious North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, A&T.
Yes.
Aggie Pride. Let's have a moment of silence for the greatness of A&T. Facts.
Yeah.
So that's where we met, and that's kind of where you know we were able to kind of cross paths in the honors program. We were in there, and so it was at that point where, you know, I guess our competitive drives kind of brought us closer together because, you know, shameless plug, I had a 4.0 for 5 semesters.
Oh my gosh.
And so, you know, I was able to maintain that for a solid bit of time. You know, due to group projects that didn't happen to be able to continue. But I did get to see how competitive you were, but not even from a competition level per se, but really because, you know, you had a drive and I believe your why was so big that you weren't going to allow any distractions, whether it was, you know, hanging out, being at an HBCU, but also being a part of the, you know, well, I'll let you go ahead and shout it out what you were part of. Go ahead, 35. Go ahead.
My sororities. I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I pledged to Alpha Mu at the illustrious North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, spring 2011. Shout out to all my line sisters and my sorors.
Come on, do it up. And so through all the potential distractions that are around and that people think that are just, you know, affecting those who attend HBCUs, express to those listening how having a big why can lead you to anywhere you really want to go, regardless of the institution you go to.
Yeah, so, you know, I think having that drive, that passion within yourself is really what's going to push you to really achieve your dreams. Again, me being at an HBCU, I felt so supported. And I was just talking to one of my line sisters about this the other day about, I think that was part of the uniqueness of being at HBCU is that I walked in and I kind of had people gravitate towards me and kind of be my support system. versus leaving that environment and going to a predominantly white institution for medical school. I had to learn how to build that support system. I think, again, if you have that inner drive, that passion, then you can get to the goal regardless. It's just the route you have to take to get there. And I think, you have to ask yourself questions along the way. If you're trying to do something like get your PhD or get your MD, something that takes a lot of patience, hard work, dedication, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it for me? What do I want to do with this? Where do I see myself down the road? Because unfortunately, some people do get into it and then realize like, oh, I'm out. This is too much. I'm not going to stick with it. It's hard. You really have to self-discipline. So you have to ask yourself those questions along the way to make sure that you are staying true to yourself. And it's okay if you're not. It's okay to change courses. That's totally fine to do. But, doing something like that, you just have to make sure that you're in it for the right reasons, or else you're just going to get lost. And so for me, I had to, every checkpoint, from being in college to medical school, going through those little check boxes that I had to do on that path to going to medical school, I had to make sure every checkpoint, check myself and make sure that that's still what I want to do. What is my goal? What do I want to do? And I will literally ask myself those questions and make sure that that was still a dream of mine. Having, I would say, friends or colleagues that have similar goals and dreams as you do can be helpful, because you have somebody to talk to and, people to kind of get through those tough points with you. But it is so important that you just be real with yourself, within yourself. What do I want to do? How am I going to do that? Is this worth me continuing to go through? Because if you want it badly, then you're gonna do what you need to do to get to that goal.
For sure. So this question is really for the HBCU graduates who are recent graduates, or for those who are getting ready to graduate. And I'll give a little background before I ask the question. So I got my bachelor's degree in civil engineering at the illustrious at A&T. And so being in civil engineering, we were a part of the American Society of Civil Engineers. And so they had a conference every single year where people would go. But the conference wasn't really just you attend, you show up, you meet people, you have, a bunch of different seminars, webinars, whatever, things that you attend. It was very interactive, right? And so it was competitive. So we had like the steel bridge challenge, we had the concrete canoe challenge. So you had all these things where, you had to pretty much spend a semester plus, getting yourself prepared to not only report on what you've been able to produce, but actually test it out and actually build a bridge and actually race a concrete canoe in water, right? Sounds impossible, don't it? And so going to these conferences, you see, the Clemsons, you see the Citadels, you see University of North Carolina, you see Duke, you see all these, big name institutions who have, large donors. They have, a lot of resources. Their labs are bigger. You know what I'm saying? And so oftentimes you get there and you're like, man, little old A&T youngins out here trying to make it work. And it kind of puts you in a mindset of, I may be less than because they have all the glitz and glam. So the question then becomes, what mindset did you have as you left A&T to go to East Carolina for med school? And then what value did you have to always bring to the table as you got work done and as you were in classes, as you were going through your different rotations? What value did you have to bring, and what mindset did you also have to bring?
Yeah, that's a good question. I struggled with that a little bit. I must admit. I think, kind of like what you mentioned, when you look at what you have and you compare it to somebody else, and sometimes you can feel a little bit less than, or am I prepared for this? Am I smart enough? Do I have the background needed? So those are all insecurities, I would say, that I had going into medical school and even applying to medical school. That will always lurk in the back of my mind. Can I really do this? Like, I know I'm excelling well here. Can I do that there? Is it going to be different? So to try my best to, I guess, kind of challenge myself to get out of that mindset, one thing that I tried to do was expose myself. And so what I mean by that is, in college, again, although we were at HBCU, I would take the summer opportunities to really expose myself in a different institution, or, figure out, okay, well, let me get a little taste of how they do things at different places. And so I summer interned at PWIs every single summer. And then even before I went to medical school, I went up to Massachusetts General Hospital, which was kind of intimidating initially, because here I am, like you said, this little girl from A&T who people had not even heard of.
Yeah.
And and then they,
what's a black
right,
school?
like, what is that? And so here I am with these. I actually worked with some medical students and then some other undergraduate students, but all those students were from Ivy League institutions. And here I am sitting in the same conference rooms with them, in the same meetings, doing the same projects. And so it was a way for me to almost test myself, but really prove to myself, that I was more than capable. And so I think really immersing myself in experiences like that helped tremendously when I was leaving the HBCU and going to a PWI. So I think I had a little bit more confidence, like, okay, I've done this, this, and that. I think I can get through this. But even trying to get through that first semester of medical school was very, very challenging for some of those similar reasons. I am very lucky to have had a very strong group of other Black medical students, and we kind of like help support each other and help each other through those tough times. But I think, to really answer that question, what kind of mindset do you need to have? I think ultimately the mindset you need to have is that you're there for a reason. You were put there for a reason. You have this goal in mind and that you're more than capable of doing it. And I literally would have to tell myself that, it was not even something that, other people would tell me, my mom, my dad, and of course I value tremendously what they feel about me, what they think about me. I want to make them proud, but I had to believe in myself. So I had to tell myself that. I used to write quotes on my bathroom mirror so that when I went to the bathroom every morning, when I woke up, I would see that and let that be kind of the start of my day. Because otherwise you do kind of get caught up in those feelings like, am I good enough for this? Can I really do this? Am I really as smart as people think I am? That kind of, thinking you can get into. And so really learning how to train your mind to be more positive, you have to learn how to do that. And to do that, you have to talk to yourself every single day. You have to push yourself every single day. So I wouldn't say that I got over this hump and I was just able to, I was smooth sailing from then on. I think, even throughout medical school and even now after I graduated medical school, I have a degree. I became a doctor. Even like learning how to take care of patients, getting through those very challenging situations with patients and families, that is still something that I had to remind myself, like, you can do it. You're capable. You're here for a reason. I have to continue to tell myself those things.
So what it sounds like you're saying is you are ready, but it's hard. And it's not hard. It's not easier because you did, for those who went to Ivy League, the material is just hard in general. And it's supposed to be hard because can't everybody just be no doctor.
Right.
I'm saying
right.
You can't have everybody just doing all this type of stuff and stuff like that. So it's going to be hard, but A&T prepared you though, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. More than what I realized until I got to medical school and did those internships and realized like, oh, I know this, I've done this before. So A&T definitely prepared me. And I think the thing that it prepared me to do the most was to be a hard worker, to really, figure out, okay, this is my plan. How can I go about, kind of carrying out this plan and getting to the goal that I want to achieve? And I think it was very crucial at A&T is where I learned those kind of little skills. So that ability to like keep pushing, keep going. Because even though obviously medical school was 10 times harder than undergrad, I did a pretty rigorous major in undergrad. I majored in chemistry. Yeah, not, it's great though. That's the nerdy side of me, but that took a lot of hard work and patience. And so I think being at A&T again, where I had such a great support system, I was able to navigate through some of those complexities that maybe if I had gone to a PWI would have been a little bit more challenging for me to really get that support system and do as well as I did. So, but A&T definitely prepared me. And I would say, I personally did not notice any major difference between my classmates that I actually think.
Yeah, you were smarter. Sure. Why are you playing? You would call me talking about, yeah, I got this 101 and they ain't even had bonus.
No, what I was going to say is I was the only one in my class. I had to make sure that I was speaking correctly. I was the only one in my class that attended an HBCU. And so I did not feel like I had any major setbacks. I didn't feel like there was this like big noticeable difference between me and my other classmates who did not attend an HBCU.
So coming from a PhD doctor and a real doctor, the MD doctor, Dr. Young, having big dreams means you got to put a lot of work in, and it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But all my HBCU grads, you're ready. You're prepared.
Oh, yeah.
Just go out here and grind to get to where you want to get to, and you'll get that PhD. You'll start that business. You'll get that MD. You'll do whatever you want to do. You'll climb within your industry. You just got to put the work in and keep grinding. So you said something about, you being the only one. So tell me about, having to feel like you have to represent your race while still trying to succeed at a very hard task of getting this medical degree.
Yeah, that was difficult. Again, I was fortunate to have other Black medical students in my class, and we really leaned on each other, still do to this day. But there were a lot of issues similar to what we're facing right now with George Floyd's death that came up during medical school. And, we were conflicted about it. We were hurt. We were very emotional and just, trying to figure out how do we make ourselves heard when we're only this small percentage of the whole class? Like, do they even really care? And so we would often, try our best to kind of wiggle into class conversations, those important topics. We would host like a lot of special events for Black History Month just to make sure that we educated people on what was really happening and what has happened. And I think that it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to do anything to essentially step out of the norm and do something that is maybe a little bit awkward for people, or, it makes them ashamed of some things or ashamed of their family or whatever the case may be. It's very hard to do. Mm-hmm. And I would say doing those things, it taught me that not everybody's going to be receptive to what you do or what you believe in, or how you feel. And that's okay. It shouldn't stop you from voicing your opinion. It shouldn't stop you from doing what you think needs to be done. But definitely were moments where I felt Black in medical school. And, I don't want to say that there weren't any people that didn't or weren't receptive, because there were. Mm-hmm. And I think, putting yourself out there on a limb, you also find out like oh, wow, this person who I thought was this, and this is actually like out here fighting for everything that I'm saying, and is very vocal about, how they feel about these issues too. And so it opens your eyes up to things that maybe you have some implicit bias about too. But definitely felt like there were times where, because I was, again, one of the only Black students there, that maybe some people looked at me differently, or that I did have to prove myself. I did feel like that, that I had to prove myself. Because a lot of people think, because they look at the color of your skin and they think you didn't work that hard to be here, or you didn't work as hard as me to get here. So that was something I had not experienced before, and just feeling like some part of me had to prove myself to earn my spot here, even though I was already there. So that was certainly challenging. And I think at the end of the day, you just have to stay true to yourself, because there are going to be people that will make you feel that way. It will be people that will, like just say all types of things, affirmative action, this and that, to really discourage you. But, knowing that you can do it, staying true to yourself, it really just pushes you through to get, through the entire thing. But it was certainly very obvious at times that, we were the Black students.
Wow.
Particularly when these issues came up. And then I think the hard part of it too, which again is similar to now, when we talk about, like, we're both in our professional lives now, and we try to figure out, how can I work and grieve when stuff like this is going on? How can I go about my life and get things done when all this heavy stuff is happening? How do I even do that? And so it was very similar in medical school, where, we were expected and had to study all day, every day, to really learn the information. And then when stuff like a Black man gets killed, unarmed
Michael
Black
Brown,
man, right?
You're
And
right.
it's like,
Sandra Bland. All that happened while we were in school. Yep.
Right. And so it just like shatters your whole day, and you're like, how do I even function and get through what I need to do? And then it kind of makes, or at least for me, it made me angry sometimes to even think about, my white classmates don't even have to worry about this. Like, they're studying for 5-6 hours straight, and I've been sitting here literally on my couch crying for 5 hours because I'm upset about what's happening and I don't know what to do. So definitely went through it those times in medical school as well. It's just difficult to navigate.
Like, talk about separating unequal, right?
Right.
I mean, I even had to tell Black students at the University of Arkansas, I say, look, y'all need to stop holding events. Y'all need to stop doing all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, something would happen, on campus, and then all of a sudden, the people trying to hold, different forums on implicit bias and this kind of stuff. I'm like, bro, look, you got a calculus exam tomorrow. Focus on your calculus exam. These white folk ain't changing between now and the time that your exam needs to happen. So they're not worried about you and the bias that they putting up against you. They trying to pass this test. So you pass the test and figure out how to deal with that stuff later on. Because you only came to this university and paid your mama good hard-earned money and them loans you finna pay back to get this degree. You didn't come here to change lives. That was not a part of your contractual agreement when you signed up to come to this institution. Anyway,
but then you feel like it's part of your responsibility.
Yeah, like we paying to be here. I did not sign up to have to challenge how you are and how you see me. I signed up to get what the end prize was, and if anything gets in the way of that, I need to get paid. That's my feeling. That's my feeling. I digress. I have a 3-part question. I'll make it. All right. As a Black woman medical doctor, what are your hardships going to work every day? Number 2, what are the issues that are affecting the Black and brown community in a healthcare standpoint? And then number 3, how are Black and brown communities being impacted as we know, they're being impacted differently by COVID. But talk about that from being inside the healthcare system. How are they being impacted by COVID-19?
Yeah. So I think for me, going to work, some days are better than others, but I always have to wonder or ask myself, am I going to have a parent today that very clearly doesn't want me to see their child because they judged me already from when I first walked in the room. And unfortunately, I have had that experience. I remember very vividly, it was my first year in training where I saw this family, and I thought, the visit went fine, but apparently they requested to not see me anymore. And when asked why, they never said why. They couldn't give any reason. And, they were asked very specific questions. Did you feel mistreated? Did you feel like you received the wrong diagnosis? Yada, yada, yada. And it's just like, no, I just don't want to see that doctor anymore.
Was she Black?
And, yeah, so that was hurtful, because that was the first time I had really experienced that as a physician. But unfortunately, talking to other, again, Black physicians, Black female physicians, is probably not going to be the last time, and still something, that we continue to face with some patients not even wanting you to touch them because of what you look like. And that's hard to do because I signed up for this job because I want to take care of people. I care about all people. I want to, do my due diligence and do what I can to heal people from illnesses that they have and prevent people from getting illnesses, no matter, what they look like or what they do. And I think something that's also a challenge in being a Black physician in general is encountering some families who, I would say, I guess, respect you because you are a physician, but very clearly, or make their political views very clear and out there, like during visits. And you have to you can't engage in that conversation. You have to remain completely professional. You can't put any bias towards that person and treat them any differently. So sometimes it's hard to not engage in those conversations and try to educate in that moment because this other part of me, that's what I want to do. But then I have to remind myself I'm here as this patient's physician.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other challenge to being specifically a Black female physician is people not acknowledging you as a physician in the first place. And so I can't count how many times I've gone into a room, I've seen a family, and I legit will talk to them 5-10 minutes, introduce myself as the physician, talk about, what's going on, what we're going to do, treatment, all this stuff. And they refer to me as the nurse, or they think I'm here to, just come do like intake, like billing, or a janitor, or somebody from food services or something like that. Even though I'm standing here in a white coat, I have my stethoscope on, but I have my badge that says physician. So that's definitely challenging. And then I think even when some people know that you're a physician, but very clearly don't acknowledge that in a different way. So I guess an example would be, like, I've had a situation where it's me and a guy in a room, and even if I'm the senior person, now I'm the person there with the most experience, I'm, kind of trying to teach them, this other colleague that's here that's a man, I'll get referred to as sometimes Jessica. Sometimes they'll call me just, or Miss Jessica. And then they want to make sure for the male, they say Dr. Smith, or Dr. this. Or, it's a very obvious difference between how, sometimes I get addressed and sometimes how a man in the room gets addressed. So that is certainly a challenge as a physician, as a female physician specifically. And then you asked two other questions, but I can't remember.
Yeah, so The second question, and I guess this question came from, I guess, an interview that happened, I guess, a couple weeks ago, where I was talking to. She's a physician assistant,
Mm-hmm.
and she was saying how like you can tell the difference in healthcare
Yes,
in
yes, yes,
different
yes,
communities. And
yes,
so, what
yes,
is that, and why is that the case?
yes. I certainly, and I was just talking to my residency director yesterday, who's a white woman, about this.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many times where I've noticed clear differences in how Black families or Hispanic families are treated versus white families. And it's very disturbing. And I guess I can give some examples to kind of just show you what I mean. So there are times when there have been Black families in the hospital. Again, I'm a pediatrician, so I consider myself, in my mind, I take care of families. I'm there for the patient, to heal the patient, but I have to, take care of the whole family.
Mm-hmm.
And so there have been families, Black families, if, like, say, for example, the parents are upset about something that's going on with their child, and they have a legit concern, like their child is sick, and they want to know, like, they just have questions. Well, can we do this test? Can we do this? Well, why can't we do that? Or I just want to know that my baby's okay. And, sometimes they get upset if they feel like maybe more should be done. Sometimes that leads to a little bit of anger, expressive anger, not anything like super, super violent, but, maybe they get a little bit louder, or they.
So we had some technical difficulties, but you were talking about the different examples, especially you as pediatrician. I'm saying that right?
Yes.
I never get that right.
No,
So
that's right.
as a pediatrician, like you were getting ready to go into examples of how you could tell families of color are treated differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So go ahead.
definitely. So do you need me to go back through the beginning?
No, you can just go right into the examples.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned, I've seen like Black families, again, who are very much concerned about their child, and they want more answers. They are questioning why we're doing what we're doing, why we're not doing certain things. Sometimes that leads to them being a little bit more expressive, or, changing just their body language slightly. And you can tell that even little things like that is sometimes perceived as a threat to people. I've been in situations where Black families have had security calling them multiple times because of, similar situations. But if you contrast that with a white family in a very similar situation, again, white mom, very concerned about her son or daughter, has a lot of questions, wants to know why not, gets very loud, upset. The response is very different. The response to a Black family is, ma'am, you need to calm down. Ma'am, I'm not going to talk to you if you're going to get upset like this. Call security, et cetera, et cetera. The white families often is, okay, ma'am, let's gather people. Let's have a meeting. I can get somebody from hospital administration to come and talk to you. What can we do to meet your needs better? That kind of thing. And so I noticed like differences like that. And I, again, don't want to say it's every single encounter, because everybody's not like that. But I have certainly seen those situations. And I would say in my clinic, I take care of mostly Black and Hispanic patients, but by far probably more Hispanic patients in my outpatient clinic. And you can just tell. And sometimes they'll tell me, they'll say, yeah, this doctor that I saw 2 weeks ago when I came here told me X, Y, or Z, told me don't worry about this very real thing that was going on with my child. And a lot of times, because those patients come with a language barrier, I think they are very vulnerable. It's very easy for people to mistreat them. And that can look different. It can be like, I can't speak English to you. I can't understand what you're saying, but yet you come in here and you talk to me in English about my child who's sick, and I'm supposed to understand and be able to do what you want me to do to take care of my child.
Right.
And so I definitely see that. And then just the overall resources of what is there for our Black and brown children versus our white children is very much different. And things that I see from that aspect is, take a white child that may have a specific diagnosis, and in Houston, Texas, they have this big research center for that specific disease. And they have the best people to take care of this specific disease in Houston. Like the white family, they can, afford to go down to Houston, spend a couple of weeks, get this very highly specialized treatment. And then it's like, oh, it's so great, yada, yada, yada. Well, it'll never be an option for, Black and brown children who depend on Medicaid for their healthcare services. And so just things like that, like the resources that are available for you to offer to your patients is just very different. And that plays a huge part into how you can take care of your patient. And that's something that I did not realize before I became a physician, is I can have all the passion in the world when I see a little Black boy sitting in front of me, and I know what I want to do. I know I want to do all these things, but there are all these barriers that come up, why they can't do that certain treatment that I recommended, why, they never made it to that appointment that I sent them to, why they, or never have gut hygiene because they are going from home to home because they don't have a place to stay. Things like that. I've heard children tell me about like their parents who are immigrants who, got deported, and just horrible, horrible stories. And so it's not different. It's not the same. I mean, it's a very, very obvious difference between certain racial groups that I see every day that affects how I can take care of patients. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question, but
that's kind of painful to know, right? So it may not be an officer shooting an unarmed Black person, but it could be the same system that is systemically racist and systemically disenfranchising those of a certain race. And so you may not die quick, but the system is setting you up to have a slow death just because you either can't afford it, or the level of attention and the level of care being given to you is not always afforded to everybody. So that's impactful to know, especially on a platform like this where we're trying to build community. So finishing up with that third part, and then we'll probably just go ahead and wrap it up from there, because we can go on for days. But finishing up there, that third part of, how is it now, the issues that you already see, and then roll COVID-19 into all of that. Now, how is that now affecting Black and brown communities at a disproportionate rate?
Yeah, so again, definitely kind of like I alluded to at the beginning of this, is Black and brown communities that are more disproportionately affected by that. And what I mean when I say that is Black people are not more susceptible to catching the virus, but what that means is that Black people and other people of color have difficult access to healthcare. So if you take that Black person and they can't even get access to be diagnosed with COVID in the first place, they don't get the care that they need, they are more likely to die. And that also means that, we have, unfortunately, in our Black communities, some diseases that are not specific to the Black community, but very prevalent amongst the Black community.
Like hypertension?
Like hypertension, yes, that would be one of those. So, which is high blood pressure.
Yeah, because that gets passed out a lot in the media. So, it's a big word for high blood pressure. We just call it high blood pressure. High blood pressure. But oftentimes, again, things like hypertension is more prevalent in the Black community, and then you add this virus on top of it,
they are more likely to potentially have complications from COVID and
Mm-hmm.
die. And even there are even some studies coming out now that show like those Black and brown patients that make it to the hospital, they still have a higher chance of dying. And so that just makes you think about what we're doing. So we can't always blame it on, oh, they have underlying condition, oh, they can't get to the hospital, they can't get access to care. Even those patients that get access to care, they still have a higher likelihood of not making it. And so you ask yourself, why? Why is that? Why is that happening? And I think that comes down to kind of how we treat those patients. What are we doing for them? You know, I have not personally taken care of any patient with COVID, like in ICU, about to pass away, for example. But, you know, are we offering the same treatments to everybody?
Hmm.
Are we doing all that we can for everybody? Or are we utilizing more resources for, you know, a certain group of people, whether we realize it or not? You know, kind of going back to the examples that I mentioned earlier about differences that I've seen with Black families versus white families, I do believe that in some of those situations, people didn't realize what they were doing. They didn't realize that they were stereotyping this family and doing these discriminatory behaviors based off of the prejudice that they had of what they were seeing. And some people didn't realize they were even doing that. And so we have to be very mindful of that. And so I think COVID has really shed more light. I won't say shed a light because it was already there,
Mm-hmm.
but shed more light on discrimination that we have within healthcare and letting everybody know, hey, we're not where we need to be. We're not doing a great job. And we take this Hippocratic oath when we become doctors that basically, you know, says we have a duty and obligation to do no harm, but to also give patients, regardless of who they are, what their background is, give them the best possible care that we possibly can. And we're not doing it. We're not doing it as a whole. And so I think, you know, the pandemic has certainly shed more light on that issue. A lot of people are talking about it, but it's going to be a long time before we really get to any solution about it, because it all boils down to health disparities. And that's a whole nother topic, you know, that we can get into. But, you know, they exist, and we need to figure out a way to work through them and get rid of them, because it's harming our patients. It's causing our patients to die. And that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to save everybody if we can. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, for sure.
certainly I think the pandemic has shed light on health disparities, racial disparities within healthcare, and certainly a new area that a lot of people are starting to look into and pay more attention to because of the pandemic.
So as we fight Black Lives Matter in the street, we need to be fighting Black Lives Matter in the ER, in the ICU, and all over every hospital, every urgent care.
Yep.
That's out there. That's interesting.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's crazy. Well, Dr. Young, my friend Jess, I just want to thank you so much for being on. I want to give you, this is very candid, but there's millions of high school graduates or about to be graduates, and millions of college, millions of medical students. Well, maybe about thousands of medical students, but millions of graduate students at the master's level, EDD, PhD, et cetera, who were not able to actually have a celebration like we normally do for commencement. Hitting hard even again on the Black and brown community, as for some, those are the first to graduate at certain levels. And so if you had to be the 2-minute commencement speaker for, or less, I mean, it's your call, but if you had to be the commencement speaker for these millions of students who have pushed to get to the finish line just to not be able to celebrate in a fashion that was desired and that was expected, go ahead and provide a commencement for those as they go out and seek their goals, either going into graduate school, those going into the workforce, those going into college, or beyond.
So class of 2020, congratulations, you made it You put in all the hard work, the time needed to get to where you need it to be. It's important to know that the world is yours. I think instead of looking at this pandemic as it took away from my graduation and all the celebrations I could do, think about the story that you have behind it and how you can use that as fuel to the next stage in your life. You went through something that most people can't say they've ever been through, and having to navigate and learn how to do things completely differently. And that is going to help you in the long run. So just know that everybody is proud of you. You've worked very hard. We celebrate you, even though we can't do it in person. And we know that you guys are going to go on to do great things. Just remember, as we talked about throughout this entire time, if you put the work behind it, that's your true passion, that you can do it. I think that's the number one message that I always like to tell the youth, is that you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Seek those people that are willing to invest in you and to help you, because they are out there. We are two of those people. You know, we want to see you succeed, and you can do it if you put your mind to it. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't obtain your goals or your dreams. Just figure out a way to do it. And it's, never poor time to do it. If you're 25 and you're like, man, I still haven't done that thing I said I was going to do, I haven't gotten that degree I said I was going to get, it's not too late. Go ahead and do it. Reach for the stars. Only you can control what you're going to do. So congratulations again. Proud of you. Hang in there. Looking forward to what you guys will do in the future.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jessica Young. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for tuning in today to the Build Community Through Love's The Network. We're happy to have in conversation today with Dr. Young. You can keep up with us on social media at Build Community Through Love, as well as online at buildcommunitythroughlove.com. I am the host, Dr. Joe Daniels. And if anybody hasn't asked, or if anybody wonders, tell them we're building. And to close it out, can I get an Aggie Pride?
Aggie Pride.
All right, there you have it.